Okay, listeners, I am very excited to have this conversation today because I am here with some great friends, Kelly and Ryan Rauch, who we've known for a long time. I don't remember how long or where our paths originally crossed, but we've been kind of like ebbing and flowing and following each other's journeys and lives for a long time. And over the last few months, we've had the opportunity to get really close and intimate through the Strategic Planner for Life couples experience that we started in the fall of 2021. And then we wrapped up right at the new year. I think it was right after the New Year's when we had our last session.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to welcome you guys here today, to hear your reflections, to see where you are, to share your journey and your story with our listeners. I think you have so much wisdom and value to offer just by sharing what you've been through, what you're focused on, how you work together. So thank you for being here today and sharing your story with us.
Hey, we're excited to be here.
We're happy to be here.
Amazing. So can you start with some basics? Just to give our listeners some insights into your life and who you are. Tell me a little bit about like who you are, where you're at, how many kids do you have, what do you do? Just some like quick tidbits.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'm Kelly, and we have two little boys, Reagan and Cohen. Reagan is 4, Cohen is almost a year and a half, and we live in Powell, Ohio. I'm a real estate agent, and I've kind of just switched careers in the last 2.5 years, from a marketing career full-time on my own to now real estate full-time on my own. And that's been an interesting and fun and good shift for me. Yeah, who are you?
Yep. So I'm Ryan. I work in private medicine. So we do everything from medical marijuana, CBD, Botox injections, migraines. So I've been doing that for the last 4 years. And then in addition to that, Kelly and I both have our personal business, which we do real estate investing on the side. So that's kind of what occupies our free time. And then, about us.
And the kids.
And the kids.
And the kids, of course, and the kids.
Yeah.
Full lives, really, full lives. I think that so many people can relate because we so often want this life to just be simple and I have the kids and I've got the job, but it tends to not be. We have a business on the side, we've got careers, we've got the kids, we've got our social life. So it becomes this very full experience, especially when we're in partnership and family. And I can so appreciate about that for both of you. And I'm excited to share more about how you've kind of put effort and energy into all of those things and help them all kind of like create momentum and keep moving. Especially I need to celebrate you today because before we jumped on, you had a really big win or are on your way to having a really big win with a new investment property, which is very exciting for that business. So kudos to you for making momentum on things together, even with everything else that's going on.
Well, it's funny that Ryan was like, our side business is real estate investing because it just got ramped back up. Like we didn't really do a whole lot in real estate investing for 2020 crushed us with real estate investing, and we had to kick out our tenant, or we had tenants that were awful, and it was just the whole thing. So we didn't do anything in 2021 except talk about it.
Yeah.
And then what really happened was doing the strategic planning for life with you guys kind of got our gears in motion, without me cussing on here again.
Totally cuss. You can totally cuss.
And so yeah, that's a new revelation for us, but we're excited for this year and what we can do with our real estate investing side. It's been a long time dream of ours to make that a bigger business. So I think we're on our way there.
So that actually brings me to a great starting question. When we're really reflecting on your strategic planning for life experience, who were you? Where were you? What were you thinking about that made you say, I'm going to reach out to Phil and Krista and we're going to ask about this strategic planning for life experience. What was going on in life that made you interested in doing something like this?
You can't answer this question because I'm the one that was like, hey, I have this thing I want to do. And you were like, what? What? So I think like the main thing in our lives that was going on was I just felt like we were just like Humpty Dumpty in our way around together. Like we were just, I was kind of doing my thing. He was doing his thing. We would occasionally talk about the future, but we never had like a plan for that. And, you and Phil a while ago had shared that you did this planning document every year, right? And I think it was probably like because we've done it 4 or 5 years in a row, I think. We bootlegged your document and started doing that. So we had every January, the first week of January, we always got together and did a rough plan for the year. Well, the problem with that is that was it. We had this one day in January where we had this rough plan with our goals, what we wanted to achieve, and then we never touched it again.
We didn't check in with each other and
Ever.
see where we were at with that. And so
Yeah.
it just kind of was a fruitless exercise.
But we felt great doing it. We're like, yep, look at us. We like have this plan every year. But the funny part of all that was we had this plan for 2020, and like everyone, we looked back at our plan in the middle of 2020 and like laughed so hard I could have cried. And I did cry because everything we had thought we were going to accomplish like just basically went out the window. But it was also not only because of COVID, like I don't want to blame everything on that, but also because we had no like strategy to make any of it happen. We're like, we want to flip 6 houses, like all these things. we did 0 houses, first of all. We had no strategy around it. So I think to answer your question, I saw you guys post about this course, and I trust you guys a lot. I trust you, Phil and Krista, what you've done. And I just said, you know what, if they're coming up with something that can help people, couples in particular, work together professionally and personally, I think that's something we could use, because I think marriage counseling is a great thing, but I also felt like we needed something too that helped us with our business as well. So that's kind of where we were. And I think I presented it to you and you're like, how much does it cost? But that was kind of where we were. I just felt like we were just wandering around, like, we don't know what to do. And then we found you again.
Ryan, what was it like for you? So Kelly brings in, hey, I want to do this thing. And you say, how much does it cost? What was that experience like for you? Especially as you're like, oh, okay, what is it? And what's the investment for? Tell me a little bit about your experience.
Those are probably my first thoughts before the cost thing. But, this is par for the course with Kelly. I think she is very much the dreamer and very much sees where we want to go and what are we going to do to get there. And I'm more, kind of trudging through the day to day and in turn like, well, we have to pay these bills and we have to do all these things. And so I think I have a tendency to lose sight of what that bigger goal or what our dream is. And so, I had kind of some questions and some things about what it is that you want to do, but ultimately I know and I trust that Kelly wants to do these things so that we can get to where we both want to get to. And I think ultimately we are trying to align our professional lives so where they can run a little bit more intertwined, rather than she does her real estate, I do my, medicine, and then we kind of meet up in, the evenings and figure out, how the day went. So there was some apprehension to start, but ultimately, I trust her judgment and I trust her kind of vision. So, the closer we got, the more excited I got and the more I wanted to kind of use this, not only in our kind of personal lives and professional lives, but as a way to improve my own personal kind of outlook on how to approach things.
And I want to say too, like our goal has always been in some way to work together. And I don't think has to be everyone's goal that goes through your course, right? Everyone has different, like the people in our group, some of them don't work together at all. I know one of the couples like is starting to work together a little bit, but it just kind of depends on your goals. But our goals were to get more aligned on how we can create the life that we've always wanted and talked about, and that includes working together.
Right.
So I think that's a big thing. I think some people think, well, I don't want to work with my husband. We're like, that's fine, but you can still do this course and not have to work together. You can still get aligned on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I so appreciate that reflection, because it can work for anyone. For your situation, you had your individual plans, your personal family, shared family, but then also your business plan. So it's kind of, the whole idea is that it can be full spectrum, because you're one human, you're one partnership, and you have this one life. Everything needs to fit within that. So it's like this holistic approach. So I appreciate you sharing that. I also appreciate you sharing your dynamic and how you're different and how you see situations differently. And Ryan, your reflection about Kelly, and we talked a lot about this in the class, especially, I mean, in the first module where we're talking about personality, we had all of the couples in the class, we're all kind of like reflecting about ourselves and each other and what we think of our partner, and in such a positive way. But the fact that you can say, you know, Kelly's superpower is to see vision and to like create momentum and to get going. In our partnership, that's Phil. We talked a lot about that. And Ryan, you have more of like an operating, managing perspective, which is more also like, I'm more of that. I'm similar to you in that way. And we kind of saw that across the board for all the couples, that we have these superpowers that we bring to the partnership. And what the two of you did and what you just reflected, I think is so powerful, that even in that time where you were trying to figure out, is this right for us? You leveraged those and leveraged then trust of each other to kind of move into the experience. Now, a question from that, though, from that reflection you also had, was how did you feel knowing, okay, we know each other, we know our situation, but we're about to go into a class with these people. We don't even know who's going to be in this class. We don't know who we're sharing this time with. And we're about to like open the doors to our life together with like all of these unknown parties. What, especially Ryan, for you being apprehensive, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I still remember about a week, maybe a few days before we actually started the thing, we kind of had a breakdown. We had a fight, and I was just at a point, you know, professionally and kind of in a relationship where I recognized something needed to change, right? In me, more so than like our dynamic. But I kind of had this moment where I was just going to come to this class with just ultimate honesty, ultimate just transparency. I wasn't going to be afraid of whoever, you know, what else was in the class and whatever they were going to learn about me, because I wanted to maximize, you know, what benefit I wanted to get out of it, both for myself and for us as a partnership, both, you know, marriage and professionally. So I think that kind of revelation allowed me to come into it with a different perspective than I maybe otherwise would have. And so any fear that I otherwise would have had, I think wasn't there at the beginning. And then with everybody, and you guys especially, kind of coordinating, you know, all the discussions and the work that we had to do, I think it became very easy very quickly to open up, to be honest, and to see value very early on. So I think it was a good thing.
I think it was easier to come into people you didn't know anyway. Like not knowing who was really in the group. I think you alluded at one point, like, because I was like, do I know anyone in the group? You're like, well, you might know so-and-so and this other couple. And, but it was almost easier to come into that and knowing you guys, but also, like I said, like I trust you guys. It's a different relationship than someone else maybe I've worked with in the past. If I would have maybe known ahead of time they were in there and I knew them, I would have been a little more reserved. But because I didn't know anyone, I was like, here's all of our cards. Yeah. Here's everything, guys. And it's funny because they're all here in Columbus. We could all see each other and get together. But I feel like now, if anything, we're closer and more comfortable to connect with them too. So the group aspect, I was excited for it.
Yeah.
It ended up, I mean, it was just such a, we got vulnerable fast, and we shared so much life during those weeks. And also, I mean, all the ups and downs, right? So we're coming together around strategic planning for life, but we've got sick kids, we've got COVID, we had holidays, we had Thanksgiving, we had Christmas, we had family dynamics, extended family. So we had all of this life kind of coming together in these moments, but it was kind of just such a unique, vulnerable, safe space that seemed to be created. And it was only created by your willingness to come in and share and open up. And I know at one point, and I hope this is okay to share, but at one point you said, is anyone else having some like extra fighting or conflicting conversations at this point? And Phil and I were the first ones to raise our hands because of the fact that you're spending so much focused effort hitting on so many of these topics and kind of like unwrapping these topics that maybe haven't been touched or addressed, or they need to be dusted off and aligned on. And the two of you so boldly and openly just like dove into all of it. And it was really inspiring to see you go into those topics and then share them with the group. Did that feel uncomfortable at any point when you were sharing that vulnerability and opening up along the way? Or did it always kind of be like, it was cool, we're good with this?
I mean, I always felt good.
I thought, yeah, no, I thought it was easy. I think, like you said early on, I think everybody was very vulnerable, very open, and nobody was, if one group would have been, maybe more reserved, and then maybe that would have kind of spilled out into the group. But I think everybody was really open, and it never felt uncomfortable I mean, even that first class when you're introducing yourself, like Kelly said, I think the fact that, we didn't know anybody, we didn't have any kind of, oh, I know this person, so I'm going to keep this part of my life, maybe a little private. I didn't have any fear about kind of getting into some of the vulnerabilities that maybe I have.
And I think I'm a notorious oversharer anyway. Like I will just spill my guts to anyone like all the time. Sometimes I come back and I'm like, oh, they probably didn't need to know that. So yeah, I mean, but I think I always am wanting to relate to other people too, because there were every week truly every week, our conversations always led to some sort of disagreement. And it was kind of like, and I don't want that to scare people because it was all conversations that we had to have. It was all things that I think of it like a volcano, like, it was all these things were about to erupt. And then when we finally open up the top, it comes out, right? Like, or whatever analogy you want to use.
I think
when
it's
you finally let, I was going to use a pimple, but I thought a volcano would be better, right? Like, it's you.
Probably, yeah.
But it was all this stuff we would have never discussed ever that was bothering us or that we didn't agree on or we didn't align on until we were forced. And it got to the point where, like, we had to sit down together before our next group call. We had homework to do, and we would be like, because we knew it was going to bring up some conversations that were going to be tough, and we had to get in the right frame of mind to do that. And some of our best working sessions were when we would get out of the house and go. We went to a brewery one day and did one of our sessions. Anytime we could get away from our home environment to do it was always more productive. Yeah. But I know when we would like sit on the couch and try to discuss our week, we're like, we just would get on each other. Well, but it was used. I mean, we needed it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, especially in a marriage, you know what the other person's sensitive points are, right? Like, I know I don't want to bring this up because it's going to lead to this reaction, which means we're going to kind of have a disagreement. I just would rather, just kind of avoid that and kind of maintain some tranquility or whatever the case might be. But I think what you learn is when you open up these difficult conversations, it's not always the reaction that you would have expected. Like, a lot of times it leads to a really positive conversation at night. And you go back and you think to yourself, like, I totally saw that going a different direction. But now that I have this better open, communication policy, especially when we're doing this really focused work, I think it surprised me. And in a lot of ways, it helped me understand her better, both the way that she thinks, the way that she works, and the way that, I can help with that or facilitate anything that I can to create more positivity between us.
Oh, it's such a valuable reflection. And it just, I don't know, it just like gave me all the feels because it is that like we're constantly learning about each other. Philip and I have been doing this for years and we're constantly going through the process and asking one of the questions and being like, I didn't know that about you. I didn't even realize that was top of mind. And I think different stages of life bring up different parts of who we are or evolved versions of ourselves. So that iterative process is very cool. And I love that you shared that and that deepening of just like the awareness of each other, even though, I mean, how long have you been married?
8 years this week.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah.
It's on Tuesday.
Yeah,
not yet. Your gift is not ready. Not yet.
Don't bring that up.
8 years. We've been together 10.
Okay, so you've known each other for this long, but I think also, and I'm really wondering if you agree with this or not, I think that structure, no matter what, whether it's strategic planning for life or any other program, a level of structure and accountability and community, I think can go a long way in helping to make sure that the conversations are happening and that you're getting through the tough stuff in order to have that opening, right? So like strategic planning for life is that 8 weeks and there's activities and exercises and you almost feel like, okay, well, we have to work through this because we have to get to the next module. And we know we have this call coming up that we need to be able to like share. So I don't know if that resonates with you all. And I know you've done a lot of work with other mentors and coaches, but does that tend to help you guys make progress and get through some of those conversations?
Yeah. And I think also knowing that there was a financial investment involved is definitely something that makes him more willing to do the work. I think if it was free and we were just doing this for fun, we would just put it off. We would ignore the times we didn't want to do it. We would just ignore the work. And I know we had, maybe you didn't talk, but I had friends that were like, what the hell are you guys doing every Wednesday night? Why are you, because I would be like, I gotta go. I have a meeting today at 8:30. And they're like, no, you don't. And I'm like, no, I really do. I have like a thing tonight at 8:30, and explaining it to someone who, maybe doesn't get it. It was difficult to be like, well, it's kind of this. So I'm curious, like, Krista, when you explain this in a quick way, when you're like, what are these calls in a very quick, brief way? Because I call it business life coaching with friends and my husband. Like, I don't know how else to explain it, right? So, okay, I'm going to turn it back on you. Like, how do you explain it quickly to someone?
Well, I would just say that strategic planning for life is a life operating system, a personal operating system, and the calls are used from an integration and accountability perspective. So the whole system operates so that we can kind of come back together, check in, talk, collaborate on what those reflections are so that you can kind of keep moving through the process.
Yeah.
That's what I would call them. But if I were talking to a friend, I would probably say similar if they're kind of a little bit more distant and bringing them in. It's like a life coaching, life design program. We do it with other couples, and these calls are meant to kind of bring us together around these topics.
Yeah, that's like way more succinct than the way I try to say it. But I think anytime you invest financially with your time and have someone that keeps you accountable, you're going to be way more successful than if you try to do it on your own. And I've mentioned this before, but this last 12 months, I've invested more into myself and into us than ever before. And I mean, probably not because we came into an excess of money. That's definitely not been the case. It's more so been, I want to make some changes in my life, and I don't know how to do this on my own. And I've never, ever been afraid to ask to hire someone that is either smarter than me in a certain area or has the education or has the experience that can be helpful to me. So, I invested in a health coach. I invested in a business coach. I invested with you guys. We invested with you guys. Mm-hmm. We're currently investing with a real estate investing coach / mentor and a financial guy, financial advisor, I would say. And all of these things that have always been, and you can talk more about this, but I always present the cost to him. I always come at you with like, okay, here's what I want to do, and here's why. And then he always says, what's it cost? And then I say, yeah, it's this, but, and I try to, because I know from my experience that anytime I've invested any amount of money with someone who keeps me accountable and gives me like homework to do and ways to better myself and my business and my family, it's paid off immensely. And it might not pay off immediately, but I know 5 years from now, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad, I hired Whitney, my business coach. And I'm so glad I hired this real estate coach, because doing that got me to here. I mean, if we wouldn't have hired this real estate investing guy, we would definitely not be buying this property today.
Right.
At all. We would still be talking about it. And 6 months from now, we'd be like, oh, we still want to flip a house. And we wouldn't do it. So it's just that accountability that, man, powerful.
Yeah. And I think, the key word that you keep referencing is invest. And I think we're at a point in our lives where you think of the term, what is an investment, right? And I think a lot of the times you go to, it's a stock or it's a savings account or something like that. But if you kind of change the way you think about what is an investment, like you can spend money to invest in yourself and your knowledge. And I think that's been a hard hurdle for me to get around, because I see the dollar sign and what that means as far as what we cannot afford or what we're going to have to sacrifice. But I think, like Kelly said, you're investing in yourself in a way that you're going to be a better person when you come through this. You're going to have more knowledge, more to offer, more savvy, a better understanding of how you operate when you invest in yourself. And so, I had a conversation with somebody at work the other day, and she's like a younger girl, and she was trying to convince her fiance that she wants to go back to school. And he came at it from this, well, we have these bills and it's not a good time now to, get this money out. And I kind of told her, like, I always came at things from his point of view. But at the end of the day, in her kid's situation, going to school is an investment in yourself. And then what's the payoff going to be? Like, yeah, maybe your bills are going to kind of run up for a little while. But at the end of the day, you have a lifetime's worth of, benefit to gain from this. And whether it's schooling, whether it's, Alan Key or you and Phil, I think there's just so much value in investing in yourself. And I think that's something that in these past 12 months, seeing her go through all these things, I really have a new appreciation for.
I think too, that's the impact that you can gain and what you were reflecting on. You can see short-term changes almost immediately, right? And then Ryan, to your point, that lifelong value that you get from investing in any type of, someone who's been through the experience, even a book sometimes, I think to your point about not everyone has to be trying to do a business together to go through this work. Not everyone has to have financial independence or financial freedom or anything like that in order to invest in the wisdom of other people and systems. There are tons of podcasts and books and free content out there like there never has been before, in order to kind of, like, we call it the matrix, like you plug in someone else's experience and then within 8 weeks, you've kind of completely rewired your brain and your thinking for the rest of your life. And that can never be taken away. So that idea of like the investment of resources, because time was also a big investment of any of this work. And I think both of you can probably speak to this, especially with the year of investing that you've done. How much time have you put in? How did that feel? And then what do you think the outcomes were of putting that time and effort into it?
I think each week, the calls usually ended up being like an hour and a half, right? So there's our group calls, and then we each did our own individual work, probably an hour or so, right? And then we take time to come together to discuss our group, our core values together, or our couples work. Probably like 4 hours a week, 3 hours a week, which I don't think is a ton, but sometimes when the call's at 8:30 on Wednesday night, you're like, oh, shit, I gotta, we haven't come together to talk. We're like, okay, kids, here's your dinner. We're gonna go talk for like 30 minutes, so we're not, misaligned, because throughout that 8 weeks, things happen, and it's hard to always connect the same time. But it definitely is a time commitment, but we always did it every week. We figured out a way every week to make that time.
But I think, time is an investment the same way that, money is an investment. And I think that, when you come together and you just can discuss things, and again, kind of going back to the things that you maybe wouldn't have been otherwise comfortable talking about, you see the payoff, to your point, Chris, like right away. Like I saw the payoff in just you and I getting closer and having a better understanding of each other. I think one of the assignments, and I don't want to jump around too much, but kind of had to do with understanding your partner's kind of working styles or the way that they operate. And I think that lesson specifically resonated with us because, I think a lot of times you wanted me to be more like you and function the way that you function. And that was always a big kind of resistance for me because I don't operate the same way that you hit the ground, you run, you take things. It's like, why isn't this done yesterday kind of an attitude, which is great. And I'm more of the kind of let's think through this. Let me kind of run my little numbers or whatever it is. And I think understanding that we operate that way allowed us to give each other the space to kind of blossom in that way. And without coming together with that time investment, I don't know that we would have understood that.
I think we knew we operated that way, but it was almost like seeing it on paper or seeing it from a group setting.
Through the work.
Yeah, through the work was different. I was always like, he's just slow, but understanding that it's just different. Because Krista, you're like, me too.
Me too. Me too. I share that, and Phil will just blush after I say this, but because I'll say it out loud to all of our listeners, but early on, he would say, it's like you're kind of a wagon full of rocks that I'm trying to carry up a mountain. And I'm like,
I'm pretty sure I've said the same exact thing to Ryan before, maybe in a different analogy, but the same thing before.
Yeah. And I think, and I'm so glad you brought that up. That's the first week, right? That work, that activity is the first week. And one of the questions I was going to ask is, okay, time investment, but how soon do you start to see value? And I'm so glad to hear that even within that first week of work, within that first 3 to 5 hours of time spent, you're already seeing some value, some impact, because then you start to work together throughout the rest of the experience, and then throughout life, with more of that awareness of how you operate, your strengths, your weaknesses, or what we call your self themes and your not self themes, those things that, I might be slow, but sometimes that's a benefit, right? Sometimes Bill wants to run through, I always say, if there's like if we're looking at a field full of grenades, he'll be the one that just like takes off running, and he'll get his arm blown off and then his leg, and he'll just keep hobbling along. I'm like, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. But I'm still back at the starting line looking and being like, there's a grenade there, there's a grenade there, that one. And then I like slowly move past him and end up finishing together. But that's just our different style. So when we work together, maybe we try to leverage the speed and the slowness when it makes the most sense, especially in alignment with what you're trying to do together. And I think that's so powerful. So now, I mean, almost a couple months past that experience, that first week, how are you starting to even see some of that awareness, even just personality, come to life in, let's say, the business or on the home front as you're working together more closely, going into these initiatives now and this aligned vision of like, we want to invest in these properties, we're doing it more succinctly, more aligned. Are you seeing some of that awareness even play out now that you're almost like unconsciously using that maybe you wouldn't have before, but because you have this awareness and you're talking about it, you're actually integrating it into your work together?
Yeah, I think we're doing a disservice by not talking about like how this impacted our family too, right? Like, the business was a huge part of it and kind of at the forefront of our focus. But there was things like within our personal relationship, within our kids, that we really unpacked a little bit, and our maybe our parenting styles and our way we wanted to connect with one another. And I think one of the big questions we had at the end of this planning, we're like, okay, now we have this, like, now what the hell do we do with it? Like, how do we make this actually happen? And the way that we came up with it to make things happen was to check in once a month. And we have a standing day. It's actually today. It's the last Thursday of every month. It's on our calendar. It's called Kelly and Ryan Monthly Planning. And we have a Google Doc because that speaks to both of us. We're both Google Doc people. I made it not a spreadsheet because that's not my love language. And it's a Google Doc that we basically have, we have our non-negotiables in alignment with these. We basically have like 5 things every month: finances, business, like real estate, business, health, kids, and us, right? And we have, like, for example, for us, we have a monthly date night that we have to do, and we rotate who plans it every other week. Every other month. And then with the kids, we have to do something fun, because as I explained to you guys, like, I am definitely not the fun mom that's like, let's go on this hike or let's go on this adventure. Like, and I felt like you always have wanted to do that, but I'm always like, oh, it just seems like so much work, and diapers and strollers and da 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 da. So getting me out of my comfort zone a little bit by doing that, putting that on paper. And then you always want to talk about finances, so we have that on there. But anyway, all this to say that having this document that keeps us accountable every month, that both of us are aware of, we have to do this stuff every month, that I think that has been something where we've kind of meshed our 2 personality types to say, hey, this is what was going to work for us. A Google Doc might not work for a lot of people. And having a once a month check-in about so basically today we'll like reflect on how did February go? Did we achieve the things we hoped to achieve? And what does March look like? Right? Because I also think we often looked really far ahead. Okay, August, we want to do this. And then like life happens. So looking at it from like a month behind, a month forward, so far, it's only been 2 months, but has been working for us. And I think it's going to be a system that we'll hopefully keep in place the rest of the year. But that's a long way to say, like, I think we've meshed our styles to make this plan work for us.
And I think too, like, kind of going back to the, she moves fast, I move slow kind of analogy. I think it helps in our communication styles before, because a lot of times we'd have a discussion and Kelly can just come up with like all the reasons that she wants to do something or all the reasons that she feels a certain way and, you know, wants to have that conversation. And I'm not good about in the moment being able to, you know, volley, you know, my thoughts back to her the same way that she can.
It drives me nuts.
And so I think that having done some of these exercises and her understanding now that, okay, his brain just like it needs to process some of the things and then he'll get, you know, we'll kind of pick up tomorrow and then he'll have more of a thoughtful. So I don't feel the pressure to, you know, respond quickly because that's out of my comfort zone. It doesn't, you know, that's not me being my authentic self. That's me just trying to say something back to her that maybe I think she wants to hear or that, you know, it's going to allow us to move on versus, okay, you know, it's not every single thing she tells me something. I have, okay, let me get back to you tomorrow kind of a situation. But, you know, if it's important and I want to think on it, I think her understanding that is more of how I can be more myself or have a more thoughtful response, I think has worked for us personally. And then all the professional things too, I think we can, you know, assign, okay, this makes more sense for you to kind of work on this for a little while, and then we'll have a better kind of, you know, response whenever it's done versus this is something we need to run with. So I'm going to take this part of it and get it done.
I love that. And that's such a beautiful reflection. I also think it hits on this idea of, so often we get attached, especially for high performers, high achievers, people who are most frequently going through this course, that we like to put a plan in place and then we like to action it and then we like to get outcomes. And we all kind of go about that differently. Ryan and I might go about it a little bit more mentally processing, thinking, and then acting once we're ready. Kelly and Phil might run and act and do. But I think that there's this level of like, we have to achieve, we have to complete all these things, we have to do it all, which then can create a little bit of stress if we're just focused on the logistics and the achievement. So out of curiosity, because I don't know this about the two of you, especially over the last couple of months, how are you managing even that feeling and allowing yourself to be more in flow with the intentions that you've created? Because the whole idea is that it's not just about achieving a goal, but it's about being, right? Being the partnership you want to be, being the family you want to be, being in life the way that you want to be in life and experiencing it that way. So how do you see yourselves kind of managing that need to be like, let's make sure we achieve this versus being in flow with life and kind of allowing things to come up and evolve as they go?
I think it's appreciating the process maybe and not being so, you know, what's the word? Not goal oriented, but outcome oriented. You know, I think you have goals, but I think instead of focusing on like we would make a plan to where, okay, by the end of the year, we need to flip 4 houses. And then so all you focus is on like we have 0 right now, we should be here at this point. But instead of thinking about it that way, I think just appreciating, okay, let's do the work. Let's, like I said, the coaching, let's do these things that are gonna make us smarter about this so that, you know, we can do the things and then just keep doing the work. And whether that's, you know, the professional angle, whether that's our parenting styles, like you said, it's just appreciating that I know what makes her a good mom and I want to give her the space to do that. And I'm not expecting, you know, whatever kind of we're working through right now. It's you know, what is it, potty training at night or something like that. And it's the most frustrating part of parenting.
Same boat.
I'm like, fine, be 25 and pee the bed. I don't care anymore.
But to keep it positive, it's not necessarily, you know, expecting that outcome tomorrow because we started, but it's like, okay, we're going to, you know, encourage him. We're going to do like a sticker wall where he can see progress and he can see, okay, if I do these good things this many days. And so it's kind of appreciating, you know, the work that you do and ultimately trusting that it's going to lead to the outcome that you want.
I think that one of the biggest things that, and like looking, because I have my daily non-negotiables written on my wall over here, right? Like that work of being like, okay, and you know, we're not perfect, but having these daily tiny little wins, right? That are like, all right, did I meditate today? Yes. Did I move my body today? Yes. Did I eat a meal without distractions? That one comes and goes. Did I check in with Ryan? Like having these daily little wins. And then on a bigger picture, having like these monthly check-ins,
Right.
Because I think a lot of times I've always been accused of, and I blame myself, that I very much I forget what's happening now, and I'm so focused on what I want, right? And I often don't appreciate the now, and having these little tiny check-ins has been and so much more beneficial, I think, too. One of our favorite stories we told you guys, we were like, okay, we're going to go to COSI with the boys. This is our big outing, which to some people are going to be like, yeah, I do that like every day. For us, that was like a big deal. Not only is it a 45-minute drive to get there, but it's just a lot of work. Our little guy doesn't like mostly anything. He's not a big fan of much. And that day was a total shit show. It was a disaster. Taking the boys out to COSI was a disaster. And we kind of had PTSD from it. But that it was in our back of our minds, we're like, we have a little win, right? Our goal was to take them there. It was a little win. Okay, we got to try it again. And just having these tiny little goals instead of these big, where there are still always going to be the big picture goals, these big things, but these little wins or these little learning lessons are so valuable.
I so appreciate that. And actually the connecting the dots between what you were sharing about the boys' experience, because it isn't about that one day going perfectly and this beautiful vision of going to COSI and everybody being happy, but it's about those compounding micro moments throughout your life that build up to looking back on your life and being like, that was amazing. And oh yeah, remember that time we went to COSI and the boys freaked out? That was pretty funny. It's funny later, but in the moment you're like, oh my gosh, we're never going to do this again. But because you have the intention to have that experience, you're then going and doing it again and trying again, which then, if you think about the ripple effect of that, teaches your boys how to deal with adversity, how to deal with different sensory situations, how to like explore the world. And it's not always great and grand and fun. And I think we shared this with you when we had that conversation about hiking. You know, it's like all fun on the way at the first part of the mountain, but then on the second part of the mountain on the hike, when you're carrying a 60-pound child on your shoulders, you're like, I want nothing other than to crumble in the car and have a little cry and a snack, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you still, you know, you go out there and you do it. And the dot connection that I was talking about was to potty training, which I am, this is why we talk. This is why like having the community around this is so important. We are in the exact same boat right now. We are potty training and we have the star board on the door. And this morning was the first time that we had the whole, we didn't make it through the night, so we don't get the star, but that gave me this wonderful opportunity to sit down, to have the conversation about not being perfect, not everything isn't always going to work out. We're going to get back up and we're going to try it again tomorrow. And no, you don't get to put that star up just because, right? But to like this, it allowed, and that was the potty training. I don't know how it is for you all, but it's so small, but it is on our strategic plan. This investment in their developmental growth and our focus on it and the time that we spend just to focus on like, hey, this is something you're going through. I want to have that little moment. I want to have that little teaching moment. And it only takes 2 minutes because, you know, they care for all of a minute and then they're zoned out. But just like having that little teaching moment on their terms and in their experiences, but then we're also having the same exact experience for ourselves. And I think just that intentionality, and to both of your points, those micro moments over time compound into such an amazing, meaningful life experience. So I really appreciate you sharing those stories.
Yeah. And I think too, you know, I think what you just said, it makes a lot of sense in that, you know, this strategic planning for life, it doesn't have to be like everything we're going to do here is like for this big goal in our life mission. It's like there's a lot of value in just these little wins or these little kind of moments that we can exchange where, oh my, I can relate to that. And I can see how, you know, like you just said, kind of having that moment afterward, if you don't get a star today, that we can have a conversation. And I think these things make us better parents. So maybe, you know, we're not getting in, you know, that particular conversation that's like, okay, we're not talking about like our huge goals and our life mission, but we're being better parents because we have like a new tool to kind of talk to our kids.
I think overall the biggest thing is having more intention around everything we do. Work, business, or same thing. Our relationship, our kids, how we interact with others, how we interact with our friends, we talk about our friend groups during this too, like just having more intention around all of it instead of being, like I said, the Humpty Dumpty is just like going around life with like missing like a goal or purpose. And now you have all these things that we can rely on, we can lean on and have more intention around everything that we're doing. I just think it's been so beneficial.
I love that. And I so agree. I think it's those moments where, because even talking like that feels like it could feel so heavy to be, oh, you've got to be intentional about everything in life.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how you experience it, but I might experience it after, like we're going through so like a busy time, and then I get a good workout in and I have that kind of zoomed out moment and I'm like, oh my gosh, literally everything we're doing, I love to do. We're doing everything that I care about. I'm not spending my time on anything that I don't care about. And there's so much fulfillment in those like little moments where you realize all of this is for a purpose, and it doesn't, it's just like in flow, and it doesn't have to be about set the goal and achieve it. And because that can feel harsh and hard, but it's that, it's the balance of both. It's like the form, doing the things in the form, but also having the feeling and the being weaved in that, which we call intention. Okay. So 3 last questions for the 2 of you. And interested in both of your answers on these. The first one is, what was your favorite or most valuable module or part of the Strategic Planning for Life 8-week experience?
The deathbed.
Yeah, I'm so glad you chose that one.
Because it was like, I might cry thinking about it. It was like, holy shit. This is like, and it was very interesting how we wrote ours so differently. Very interesting. But similarly in the same way, it was like the way you wrote it was very different than the way I wrote mine, but we had the same high points in it. What was your favorite?
Real quick, Ryan. Kelly, how would you describe the deathbed to give some context to everyone?
You have to, the way I did it, I think everyone did it a little differently. The way I did it was I'm on my deathbed and I'm reflecting on my life. And I talked about, in my my childhood, my 20s, my early married years, my children, and then I went real into like, in our businesses were the X, Y, and Z. We had this, our kids had kids, and I'm surrounded by my kids on my bed. Like, it was me, like in the present moment, dying, thinking back to my life and reflecting on that and all the things I hoped to achieve. Or in my mind, I did achieve. That was kind of the way I did it.
Thank you. Gosh, it gives me chills thinking about it every time. I love it.
Yeah. What was your favorite?
I think, probably the non-negotiables, which is kind of toward the end, if not the very end. And I think just the culmination of all the work that we did, and kind of understanding that this is the way that we're going to really put it into practice. And this is really the way that, because me as an analytical person, like I want to see the work and how it's going to pay off. And I think that is a really strong way to kind of wrap things up and to kind of set you off kind of beyond the course to, putting things into practice and kind of seeing that positive change.
And how would you describe the non-negotiables, what they are?
So non-negotiables are these little things that you're going to check in and do every single day. I think Kelly alluded to it a little bit ago, but it's move your body. I mean, it's
those are your own. Those were yours, yeah.
Right. But I mean,
you choose your own non-negotiables, meaning that every day you hope to achieve these 4 or 5 things.
Yeah. So you achieve these small kind of things each day, and each person kind of figures out what is the things that I'm going to do every single day that, if you're in a partnership, that I'm going to, hey, I need you to give me space to do these things because they're non-negotiable, right? So I think being able to kind of look at all the work that you've done throughout the course, understanding what is the thing that you need, or what are those things that you really need every single day, and then putting them on paper, I think was a really powerful thing. And so I think I like that a lot.
I so appreciate that. They're like the smallest. I like that they're at the end because they're like the smallest integration of all the work that they are meant to bring you back to center. They're meant to bring you back to all the work that you did, right? Instead of having to go back and read the entire book that you just wrote, just these non-negotiables that keep you kind of centered in your energy. And if you're feeling off, you can go through that list and be like, did I do this? Did I do this? And most often when we're feeling off, it's because we didn't do those things or haven't been doing those things, right? And we go to those tough places. Okay, so next question. If you were to be talking to somebody and a couple specifically who's considering strategic planning for life, what would you tell them?
I would say it's a great investment in your relationship and in your family to do the work the work is not like, I mean, it's hard work, but it's work that's necessary in my mind. I feel like you just took all the things that couples counseling should be, right? Like talking about your goals and your personality types and your headlines for your life and your headlines for your relationship. Like talking about all that stuff is so important, and it'll just make you communicate better with each other, and it will definitely be beneficial.
Yeah, I would say no matter how good you think your relationship might be, I think there's always room to understand that person better. And I think this course specifically is the perfect way to understand better about somebody's personality, about their thinking and their working style, and all these things that you wouldn't think to just check in on otherwise. And so it kind of forces you to have difficult conversations and to open up about things about yourself. But ultimately, you are going to become a better person and have a better partnership once you are through the whole thing. So it is the work, but it is all the benefit is absolutely there.
Amazing. And last question, where can people find you if you want them to find you online or connect with you?
I want everyone to find me who wants to buy or sell a home. Not just real estate investing wise, but like my real full-time job is buying and selling houses as a realtor. So I just have my personal Instagram that I use for business and for, you can see kids and you can see the houses. Kelly K. Rauch, R-A-U-C-H. That's my Instagram, and then my Facebook is Kelly Rauch Realtor. You want to find me there. And then soon, I don't know when this is going to come out, but we're going to revive our 4 Frames properties, which is our investment side of things, which we used to post on there when we did this. That's about to get revived. So if you want to see a house being flipped, 4 Frames Properties is where you can find us on Instagram, and it's FOUR Frames Properties. What do you have to share on Instagram?
Yeah, I'm not always the most active, and it's probably a hodgepodge of whatever I'm thinking
He posts
or
like
doing.
the worst pictures of me on his Instagram. I'm like, we have so many good pictures. Why do you post it? But I'm like, he has
So if you
200
want to
followers.
see really bad pictures of a really successful person, you can find me at. I didn't remember my Instagram handle, RYN8985.
Yeah, it's RYN8985. But I think he's a boring follow. So
yeah, follow her, and you'll see more of me than you do on my own page.
Well, I mean, our, again, similarities. I mean, I'm not as consistent as Phil is. He's constant and he takes great pictures, but I think that the pictures of posting where he chooses to post something that isn't great of me, I use it as an opportunity to practice self-love and self-acceptance every single time, because I'm like, what can I do? You know, that's what I look like. And I'd rather just have it out there in the world and be able to remember it, because I guarantee you when we're 80, we're going to be like, look at that. I look great, right?
You can go on his page and see this picture of me reading a book next to Cohen, our 1-year-old, like reading a book. But I'm like, have like 17 chins reading a book, and like in a blanket and a sweater, like, just nothing is flattering about it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You posted that.
That's a sweet moment.
But yeah, then looking back, I'm sure I'll be like, oh, remember that time Cohen was a baby and he was pretend reading beside me, but yeah.
Yeah, you'll never hear. I have the same picture where I've got like the double chin and my whole belly is like really big and I've got both of it. But I'm like, it's such a sweet moment. And now every time I look back, I'm like, I'm so glad you got that and you posted it, because now you can see it and it's not just hidden in the archive. So Ryan, you keep posting those pictures. She's going to appreciate it when she's on
maybe if he gets more followers, he'll start posting more.
We'll work on that.
Yeah.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us and being a part of this community. You are truly incredible people and humans, and we're so grateful to have gone on this journey together and continue onward onto everything that we are going to go through together as a collective. So thank you for sharing your story with us and our listeners. It's wildly valuable, and I think it's going to have a huge impact on everybody who listens.
Well, thank you guys for all you do.
Yeah,
so
we feel
you guys
the
are
same
doing
way.
big things, and it's very appreciated.
All right, thanks, friends. We will see you soon.
Bye.
All right, see ya.